Hello and a very warm welcome, aspirants. If you're gearing up for your exams, you are in exactly the right place. Today we're going to break down the brand new 2025 UN Global Climate Action Report. And trust me, this isn't just another document. This is potential gold for your environment paper, your essays, and yes, even for your interview. So let's get you exam ready.
Here's our game plan. We've broken this down into 5 simple parts. We'll start with the basics, then hit the key findings, dive deep into the pledges, crunch the crucial numbers, and wrap it all up with a power-packed revision session. Let's do this! All right, let's dive right into Section 1. Before we can talk about what the report says, we absolutely have to get comfortable with 2 key terms. You know, once you nail these 2 concepts, everything else just clicks into place.
First up, the NDC, which stands for Nationally Determined Contribution. So, what is it? Think of it as a country's personal climate promise. It's their official action plan submitted under the Paris Agreement, spelling out exactly how they're going to cut emissions and handle climate impacts. And here's the key part. They have to come back every 5 years with a new, even stronger plan. This report is all about analyzing these latest promises.
Okay, next up is the GST, or the Global Stocktake. Now, if NDCs are the individual promises, the GST is the world's collective report card. It's this huge process where everyone gets together to see if, as a planet, we're actually on track to meet our goals. The very first one just wrapped up in 2023, and its conclusions were a major wake-up call that pushed countries to make these new NDCs better.
So, this timeline really just puts it all together for you. It all started with the Paris Agreement back in 2015. Then, the 2023 Global Stocktake served as that global reality check. That pushed countries to submit these newer, hopefully better, NDCs. And this report we're talking about today, it's the official analysis of those new plans. It's a critical piece of the puzzle.
All right, let's get to the good stuff, the main findings of the report. You can think of this section as the ultimate cheat sheet. If you're pressed for time, this is the part you'll want to pay extra close attention to.
So, what's the big picture here? Well, there's some good news. The new NDCs are generally better, they're more credible. A huge number, 88% of them, actually use the findings from that global stocktake. We're also seeing countries do a better job of linking their short-term plans to those bigger, long-term net zero goals. Adaptation is also getting more attention, which is great. But, and this is a big but, none of this happens without a massive injection of international cooperation and, you guessed it, money.
Now, here's a number I want you to burn into your memory for the exam. 17%. Based on all these new plans, that's the projected cut in global emissions by 2035. Is it good? Well, it shows we're moving in the right direction. The curve is starting to bend downwards. But is it enough to stay below 1.5 degrees? Nope, not even close. It's progress, but the world needs to hit the accelerator.
Okay, now that we have the bird's eye view, let's zoom in a bit. We're going to take a tour through the key themes and ideas you'll find inside these new climate pledges. These are the concepts that will add real substance to your exam answers. Now, this is a keyword you absolutely have to know. Just transition. A whopping 70% of countries are now talking about this in their NDCs. What does it mean? It's the simple but powerful idea that as we shift to a green economy, we can't leave people behind. It's about creating new green jobs, protecting workers in old industries, and making sure the whole process is fair and inclusive. This is a brilliant concept to bring up in any answer about climate policy and social justice.
Of course, you can't talk about climate without talking about forests. A massive 84% of countries now include targets for something called LULUCF. It's a bit of a mouthful. It stands for land use change, and forestry. The plans are getting specific, too, mentioning things like afforestation, programs like REDD+, and protecting vital ecosystems like our mangroves. These are exactly the kind of concrete examples that will make your answers shine.
Now, Article 6. This part of the Paris Agreement can seem really complex, but let's just simplify it. It's all about how countries can work together. You can think of it in 3 main ways. There's general cooperation, just helping each other out. Then you have ITMOs, which is basically a fancy term for carbon markets, where countries can trade emission reductions. And finally, you have non-market approaches, like sharing technology. The big news is that 89% of countries now say they want to use these tools.
Here is another fantastic concept for your exam prep. Action for Climate Empowerment, or ACE. This is all about getting the public, you, me, everyone, involved in climate action. And to help you remember its 6 key elements, we've got a handy mnemonic: IPET-PAY. That's I for international cooperation, P for public participation, E for education, T for training, another P for public awareness, and A for public access to information. IPET-PAY. Perfect for any question on the role of civil society.
All right, get ready to jot some things down. We are now heading into the data section. These are the hard numbers and statistics that will add that layer of authority and credibility to your answers. Let's get into it. So, what's the total bill for all these climate plans? The estimated cost reported by countries to actually do what they've promised is, get ready for it, $1.97 trillion US. Just let that number sink in. It really highlights the enormous scale of the climate finance challenge we're facing. And where exactly is all that money needed? Well, this chart breaks it down for us. You can see the bigger bar, about $1.3 trillion, is for mitigation. That's stuff like renewable energy to cut emissions. But look at the second bar. A huge $560 billion is needed for adaptation. That's for helping communities cope with the climate change that's already here. This gap is a really important point of discussion.
This chart is really interesting. It shows us which sectors are seeing the most new laws and policies being created to support climate action. So about 77% of countries are strengthening their environmental laws. Hot on its heels is the energy sector at 69%. And you can also see forestry and agriculture are getting significant attention. This gives you a clear roadmap of where governments are focusing their efforts.
Okay, we've made it to our final and I think most critical section. We have taken everything we've just discussed and boiled it down into the ultimate exam revision guide. This is all about consolidating what you've learned. Let's lock it in.
First, let's recap the big ideas. Remember the principle of progression. Every new NDC has to be more ambitious than the last. The GST is now a central pillar, directly informing national plans. We're seeing a clear shift towards a whole-of-society approach, bringing in everyone from youth groups to the private sector. And finally, remember that just transition is now mainstream, a core principle for a majority of the world.
Now for a rapid-fire round of the numbers you need to know. A 17% projected emissions cut, 89% of plans covering the whole economy, 88% of plans influenced by the GST, a financial need of $1.97 trillion, and 89% of countries wanting to use Article 6 cooperation. Lock these numbers in. Finally, what are the big trends? First, adaptation is ascending. It's finally getting the focus it needs, with loss and damage being a huge topic within it. Second, ocean action is on the rise, which is fantastic to see. Third, forests remain absolutely central to most countries' plans. And lastly, almost everyone agrees that technology and capacity building are the critical enablers that will make or break these plans.
So, let's end with a question, the kind of question you might face in your exam. As a future policymaker in India, how would you tackle the immense challenge of balancing our country's critical development needs with these escalating global climate commitments? It is, perhaps, the defining question of our generation. And after today, you're that much more prepared to answer it. Thank you so much for joining this deep dive.